Hello.
Hello, Alfred. How are you?
I'm fine, Mike. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. I'm very excited to be talking to you. I'm a big fan of yours.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with the most boring question first, and then I promise I'll get more interesting. How does that
Okay.
sound? All right. So right off the bat, just tell us a little bit about your character, Vigo Grimborn, and how he fits into the Dragon show.
Well, Vigo is a new villain to the show, and he and his brother Riker are kind of are heading an army, and we're involved in a fight for the Dragon Eye, and we're obviously pitted up against Hiccup and there's a kind of and there's a kind of how should I say, the two brothers, Riker and Vigo, they're like two sides to the same coin. Riker is the muscle. He's the guy that he just wants to get in there and kill everybody, burn everything. And Vigo's more of a tactician. He's more, no, let's just take the long view. Let's just take in the big picture. He's sort of intellectually far superior to his brother.
Right.
And he's kind of frustrated by his brother, frustrated by his lack of vision. So there's always a kind of tension between them. And but the fact that Vigo might be a thinker, more of a thinker, that doesn't mean that he's not above using pretty vile tactics along the way. I mean, he will stop at nothing really, and
right.
And he's just looking for more and more impressive dragons to hunt, and there are two, as you go through the series, I don't want to spoil any of it for you, but as you go through the series, you realize that there are two dragons in particular he's really, really got his eye on. So there's a really tense kind of through line in the series that's really, I think, very exciting.
Right. Now, were you familiar with the How to Train Your Dragon world before you joined the show?
Well, I saw the movies.
Right.
And I loved them, and I thought they were kind of so interesting and different, and really just very refreshing. I thought very interesting because it felt kind of grown up somehow. The writing was intelligent. It didn't talk down to the audience. It kind of it wasn't patronizing or condescending in any way, and so you were encouraged as a viewer, as a member of the audience, you were encouraged to enter this world, and it was just fantastic. And the great thing about the series, of course, is that even if you haven't had the pleasure of enjoying the movies, you can still leap right into the series without feeling you've lost anything or that you're, behind in anything. The series. The series really exists somehow in between the two movies, and it's a brand new storyline. So you can, whether you're a fan of the movies or whether you're completely ignorant of them, you can still enjoy the series equally.
Now, I'm always curious when an actor has a chance to create like a new voice character, what goes into that? How much do you know about the character ahead of time? How do you kind of shape who this character is going to be?
Yeah, well, I think usually those decisions are arrived at after sort of lengthy conversations with the director or the producers and the animators. Very often, when you're recording a voice, the animators like to film you doing it, so they can get some reference. We all have our unique ways of expressing ourselves facially, when we're talking, and they like to get a record of that so they can, if possible, incorporate some of that in their animation. So the voice will be even more integral to the visual image, because it'll make much more sense.
Right.
So there's lots of conversations about, what it's going to look like and so on. But I find the most interesting thing is always, there's always something in the writing. And I noticed that in the scripts for the series, Vigo was always written, his sentences were always a little longer. He clearly enjoyed language. He really enjoyed talking. He enjoyed expressing himself. He felt comfortable, expressing his tactics or his strategy. He gave orders very easily. He wasn't tongue-tied at any time. His brother Riker is written in a very much more of a staccato way, if you see what I mean. It's much more.
Yeah.
His phrases are more chopped, more angular, more kind of. He talks like shards, 3 or 4 punchy words in one sentence. And so I thought, that's interesting. That indicates a certain kind of rhythm, a certain kind of approach to communication. So you take all that on board, and you sort of like start developing. And we toyed with the idea of giving Vigo a much darker, lower timbre in the voice. Keeping the voice low, keeping it more menacing, more not a whisper exactly, but just talking very quietly, very. But hardly ever raising his voice.
Right.
And we kind of, and I remember in rehearsals, I said to the director, I said, the guy who's the king never has to shout because he's the king. No one talks when the king is talking.
Exactly.
So he doesn't have to raise his voice because no one else is talking when he talks. And
right.
we kind of enjoyed that idea, so. He never has to kind of say, "Hey, everyone, listen to me. Be quiet, listen to me." So things like that, and you kind of slowly build characteristics in the voice and a tone and a kind of approach that hopefully will be, will communicate itself to the audience.
I know that typically in most voice acting recording like this, it's you and the producers. It's not like the whole cast. Was that the experience for you on this show? Or did you get to interact
yes,
with
yes, it was.
Yeah,
and that's usually a kind of an issue to do with logistics, because it's tough to get 3 or 4 actors who are doing voice work all in the room at the same time. I'm sure when it happens, it's quite rare when it happens, but when it does happen,
right.
It's always quite enjoyable because you've actually got someone live, as it were, in the studio with you to work with. But it's very rare that you record with other actors. Normally, it's just you and the microphone and
right.
the producers and the engineer.
Right. Now, you obviously have a very prolific on-camera career, but I don't think a lot of people realize how much voiceover work you do, which is quite a lot. What do you like about the voiceover world versus being on camera?
Well, what can I say? I mean, I can give you the facetious answer, which is that it's nice to go to work in your pajamas.
Right.
But to be more seriously, I think it's fun. It's just fun. There's none of the kind of stuff, the makeup and costumes and all that. You don't have to go off to some godforsaken location. I mean, it's very focused work, and you work in small, intense chunks of time. You'll come into the studio for maybe 2 or 3 hours. You'll work really, really tightly, really closely, intently on some work, and then you'll go, and then you come back again a few weeks or months later, and then you do another session like that. And it's very nice. There's a kind of intimacy about the work, and because it's all to do with the voice, and therefore all to do with the voice and what that voice is saying. All the creativity is going into the language and the way you express that language. And that's a real challenge. That's a lot of fun. That's kind of fun work,
Sure. Now, I often hear actors saying that playing villains is the most fun, role. Is that the case with Vigo?
Oh, very much so, yeah. I mean, what they've created with Vigo is this wonderful, almost laid-back villain. I mean, he's kind of, he has a certain charm. He's very polite. There's a scene in one of the episodes when I capture someone, and I have these prisoners, and he talks to them as if they were, his guests at a dinner party. He's threatening to destroy them, but he's talking to them as if they're his closest friends, and there's a kind of wonderful wit and sort of that's fun to play. It's hopefully Vigo will make audiences shiver and laugh at the same time.
Now, you have such an accomplished career, and you've played so many different kinds of roles. What attracts you to a new role these days? What is it that gets your attention?
Well, it's always down to the writing, in my view. It's always down to the writing. If the writing's good, then the characters will live, and what they are, who they are, kind of comes after that, really. I mean, if there's my feeling is this: if you've got a well-written character, then who the character is, what the character is, will work.
Now, I do want to touch on a couple of your roles from some of your previous roles, if I may. I was just curious. Obviously, I think one of the roles you're best known for is Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2, which is arguably one of the best superhero movies ever made. I was just kind of curious, like, what that was such a big experience. Was it, with the CGI and the tentacle arms and everything like that? What was that? Was that a different kind of movie-making experience for you, or was it just another day on set?
Yeah. That was a completely new experience for me. I mean, I'd done big movies before, but never quite as big in terms of the technology that was involved. I mean, my very first film was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that was, in its day, that was, in terms of technology and film making, that was state of the art. I mean, there was, it was the cutting edge of what was available, but it was nothing compared to what is available now. In terms of the kinds of cameras, what cameras can do, what CGI can do, what back projection can do, all that stuff. That's all changed. I mean, when we did Raiders, for instance, the scene where Harrison has to lower himself into that pit of snakes. That was a real pit, and those were real snakes.
Right.
They had, I don't know how many, hundreds and hundreds of snakes that were sort of corralled in this room, in this great big cage, waiting to do their thing. You could smell them as you were walking down the corridors. So Harrison was being lowered into and falls into a real pit with real snakes in it. Now, of course, that would never happen now. You'd have a big green screen on the, it's all different. But there again, because it's different and because there's more technology, you can do more now. So things change, hopefully in a good way. So Spider-Man 2 was the biggest, I mean, from soup to nuts. I mean, from the first day that I went to my very first costume fitting to the very, very end, it was the best part of 9 months. It was a huge, huge endeavor. I mean, at one point we were at Sony Studios, and that one production was occupying something like 7 sound stages.
Wow.
It was just a massive, massive endeavor. And so I'd never experienced that before. So that was a very exciting and, sort of eye-widening experience, but the technology involved. We had, just in terms of Doc Ock's tentacles. I mean, we had what we called the real ones, which were manipulated by puppeteers who were just off stage, off screen. We had the CGI version of the arms. We had the animated version of the arms. So there was all kinds of technologies involved, all often working at the same time. So there was a fantastic experience, just in terms of discovering what film is capable of. And this was 12 years ago. Right. I mean, and since then, there's been enormous strides in the technology that's available. So, and it's another 12 years, and even Spider-Man 2 will become a period piece. It's sort of. But these films still stand up. I mean, I was watching Raiders the other day, actually, because a friend of mine said that his son had never seen it. So we sat down and watched it, and it's still good. It still stands up.
Absolutely.
And it's the quality of quality of these films. It's the quality. It's the quality that keeps them popular in the minds of fans and film goers.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Alfred, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's been a pleasure talking to you.